gorgeous. It's Minimoon recap time. So just jumping right in, we are in Minnesota and we just did a road trip from here to Wisconsin. We stopped and stuff along the way and it was a very good time. Our first stop was Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, and we went to the Line & Kugel's Brewing Company. I can't remember, but we did a tour there. So it was a $15 tour and you got to walk around for an hour with another group of people. And it's an active brewery, so it's very interesting to walk around. They do show you like pre-approved sort of like things, but sometimes you just see people walking in and like doing stuff while you're there, which was neat. And then afterwards you get drink tickets. And this was more than we expected. We got 4 drink tickets, which was what I expected. I thought it was for the 2 of us, but we each got 4 drink tickets or tokens. We were planning to drive more though, so we didn't drink very much. And then we sort of walked around for a little bit to sober up and went to the gift shop, and Jake was very excited. He found some jalapeno mustard and some everything bagel mustard in their gift shop. So we bought that to bring home. And I really enjoyed it. It was a really good brewery tour. I just like going on tours of the winery, brewery, distillery. Like, I just like stuff like that. It's very interesting. They do get a little samey after a while, but I don't know. They're a good time. Especially when you see like what they're making, and like how they do the tours is different everywhere. So that was very neat. And one cool thing too about Line & Kugel's is that they like mix beers. They mixed Berry Weiss with pretty much anything, other beer they had on tap, which is very interesting, which I've never thought of mixing a beer before. And I know some people would never, but it made things more interesting. They have like a lot of fruitier beers. They also have the standard beer or some stoutier beers, but the fruity ones really mixed well together. So really enjoyed that. After that, we stopped at Marieki Gouda and just kind of like had a sample of Gouda and walked around. There was a restaurant called Torpedo, so we just stopped to like get a picture in front of it because we thought it was just a fun sounding name when we were mapping our road trip. Because one way we map road trips, we usually pick a few big city destinations and just sort of look like what's along the way. Because I'm someone who needs to stop and take a restroom break every like 2 hours or so because I drink a lot of water. So I like to have stuff planned for like every hour just in case. So from the Torpedo restaurant, which we didn't actually eat at because it's still pretty early, we drove to Wausau, Wisconsin, or Wausau? I don't know, man. If I'm saying these wrong, I apologize. Wisconsinites can just come at me in the comments. But we went to there and we went to Milwaukee Burger Company, which, like, okay, so their food was like normal food, like normal American bar sort of food. But I really enjoyed their music selection. They were playing Good Charlotte, and they played some like very obscure like Korean song. They were all over the map, and it was like listening to a mixtape, and I loved that. That was my kind of vibe. And from there we went to Red Mountain State Park, and this is where we kind of hit a bump. So we have our new car because we totaled our last car in an accident. So we have a new car. While we were there, I'm used to, my old car was a shorter car. It was more of a compact car. And this is a sedan. It is a big sedan. It is like a Honda Accord 2022. They're big cars. And I'm used to my littler car. So I went around a curb and I accidentally hurt the tire. We had some scraping along the rim, and the tire itself had like a little flap on it. So that kind of like put a damper on Red Mountain State Park for us. We did walk around a little bit. We saw they had like a big sort of stand tower sort of thing that we looked at, but we did not stay as long as we wanted. We ended up driving from there. The next stop we planned was a place called Timekeeper's Distillery, because they have like a bee's knees canned cocktail. So we'll just grab the canned cocktails and put them in the trunk and try them later. So we did that. But on our way there, we passed like a couple tire places. So we decided to drive back to Discount Tire, have them check it out. They said the tire was fine, totally functional. It doesn't look very nice, but it totally functions. There's nothing wrong with the tire. There's nothing you need to fix. That made us feel better, and we went on our merry way. And yeah, after Timekeeper Distillery, we went to Oshkosh, stayed at a hotel there. It was an okay hotel. I was kind of scared of the parking lot, but you know, it wasn't really that bad. I'm just a wimp. And we had to like walk quite a ways from the parking lot to our room. But stayed the night, totally fine. The hotel we were at did not serve like a free breakfast, which is what we're sort of used to. So we went to a place called Planet City Cafe, I believe. It was pretty nearby. And they were really neat. They had cool bathrooms. Like, they had 2 bathrooms, but they're like gender neutral bathrooms. And then each bathroom, Jake told me this too, they had a little stand in the corner. So there was like a baby changing station. And then under it was like if they had extra diapers or extra wipes, they kept those there. And they also had a box for like if you have clothes to donate, you could put them there. And then if someone came in, they could take them. They had like a sign on the wall where you could like pay for someone's meal and they could just grab a ticket off the wall. it was really cool. And the food was very good too. I would definitely recommend if you're in Oshkosh, go to Planet City Cafe. I like that place a whole lot. I love the whole vibe in there. There's like a propeller on the wall. I don't know, it was neat. And then like in that same little, it was a small parking lot, and in that same parking lot there was a place called Caramel Crisp. And I was like, that sounds interesting. It's more basically a gift shop. There were snacks that you could buy. There was a bunch of books on like one side of the store. A bunch of cool stuff. We ended up getting some like spooky, like it was the beginning of October, so we got some spooky wines, spiced apple one and like a spiced pumpkin probably. I honestly can't remember, but the one had a little witch on it and it was adorable. So yeah, we grabbed our wines, got some books, and then we headed off to, I think it was the Payne. It was a museum. Yeah, it was the Payne Art Museum and Garden. It was really cool. They had some amazing light fixtures all over the place, like in the garden, in the building. They were really, really neat. I loved how they looked. I looked up how much they cost, and I was like, ooh, can't afford that, but they were so neat. I really loved the experience there. I liked walking up and down the stairs, seeing what was in every room. And it was a nice experience, and the gardens were very nice too. After that, we went to, I found a book on hiking trails in Wisconsin. There weren't very many along our route, but one was the Parnell Tower Loop Trail. And we started walking along that, but it was very long. We got like halfway like around the loop, and then we're like, oh my god, this is taking ages. We were like, we could either finish the loop or we could just head back. We'd done a little bit of driving. It was getting a little late. So we decided to head off, and our next stop was Milwaukee. The reason we wanted to like head back sooner was because there was a lot we wanted to see in Milwaukee. We stopped at where we were going to stay for the night. It was called the County Clare Irish Inn and Pub. It was a really cool place. It seemed more of like, I don't know if it was family owned, but it seemed like a very family owned feel. The person at the counter gave us like a long list of like the rules, like verbally, which was fun. None of them were like crazy. They all made sense. But it was like, oh geez, you should just have this on like a piece of paper in the room or something. I didn't know we needed to hang out here and listen to this. But got it all sorted, went in our room. It had like a jacuzzi in it. It had like a nice bed. It was a very nice place. I would recommend staying there. I definitely left them a 5-star review. I liked the vibe there a lot, and I'll get back to that in a little bit. But we had a lot we wanted to see in Milwaukee, so we parked our car. Well, we didn't park our car. We took our car, and we left. Our first stop was the North Point Water Tower, which is like a big Gothic-looking water tower. There's not much to do there besides look at the water tower. It's basically like it's inside a roundabout, so we basically parked on the outside of the roundabout and like walked around it, took a picture or two, and then we left. Our next stop was Black Cat Alley, which is an alleyway just full of murals, a lot of art, very cool. I keep saying I highly recommend going to places, but it looks so cool and I liked it. From there, we drove to the Riverwalk, and this is why, so we left the Power Loop Trail so we could like walk along the Riverwalk, but it was getting dark, and I wanted to see the bronze fawns because I knew my parents would get a kick out of me taking a picture with the bronze fawns. So we basically parked as close to it as we could on the Riverwalk, took a picture by it, and then left. I had to like pay like $10 for parking just to like walk there and walk back because they only did like 3 hours of parking at wherever we parked, which sort of sucked, but I got the picture. We didn't get to walk along the river though. We drove back to the inn we were staying at because this next part we were planning to take Ubers because a lot of the times when we go on road trips, Jake is the one driving or I'm driving, generally Jake. And so when Jake drives, he can't really like drink or enjoy himself as much. And our next 2 stops were a brewery and a distillery. So we're like, we're just gonna like spend the extra money and take an Uber so we can both enjoy this Minimoon, right? So we go back, but then we find that we went to Lakefront Brewing, and it actually wasn't too far from the inn we were staying at. I think it was like a 20-minute walk. So we're like, you know what? It's still a little bit light out. We're going to walk to where it is. It did end up getting dark around us, but we made it there and it was totally fine. And they didn't have a lot of food. I forgot what Jake got. I basically got like a brat platter thing where I got different brats and like a pretzel, and then we dunked the pretzel and stuff. And it wasn't definitely like not the best place to go if you're looking for a meal, but it was good. The pretzel was good. I like the dipping sauces with it. The brat like didn't really taste like anything. I forgot what even the other 2 things were. They didn't taste like much. I should have just gotten like a hot dog. I feel like that would have been the smarter thing to do. That might have had more flavor with it. But at the same time, it's like the brat didn't have spice flavor in it with a hot dog. But after Lakefront Brewery, that's when we got ourselves an Uber and we went to Great Lakes Distillery. loved Great Lakes Distillery. The bartender there was super nice. They had a lot of fall themed drinks. I will say I tried one of them and did not like it, but then I got another one that was like a chai pumpkin like slushy thing, and it was delicious. That was like the best thing. And we had such a good time. We were still masking and stuff going in places, but they had an outside area with like a little like fire pit thing. And it was a Tuesday night. There weren't that many people there. So me and Jake went outside by the fire pit, and it was just us outside. Like it was to a point where we're like talking to Jake's friends on Discord as we're like sipping our drinks next to a fire. And it was very fun. I really enjoyed that night. We had a really good time. So definitely go to Great Lakes Distillery if you're in Milwaukee. The bartender was so nice. Oh, and they had board games on the corner. We didn't end up playing them, but they had them. They had live music playing. It was a really, really cool vibe. I liked it there a lot. And then after that, so we got an Uber back to the country inn. That sounds weird to call it. It's not a country inn, whatever. County Clare. So we get there, and we got an Uber with someone who told us about how her car was stolen by the Kia boys. And we're just like, oh geez, like we'd heard of that, but we didn't know anybody. Jake also has a Hyundai, and so we specifically brought the Honda because we were worried people would try and get the Hyundai. I thought he was being dramatic, but it's like, oh, I guess that is the thing that does happen for real. But one really cool thing about County Clare, so we go back, and it's a pub, right? So we walk inside, and it's still up, and we're like, you know what? We can still party. And one thing that we were listening to a lot, when we go on road trips, listen to podcasts, and a podcast we were listening to is 0 Degrees. It's basically a group of 3 people. They're from the Yogs Cast, if you're familiar with the Yogs Cast. They do gaming stuff on YouTube. So it's 3 people from the Yogs Cast, and none of them have gone to college is the premise. And so people write in questions asking for advice, and they're supposed to give their like uneducated opinion. I don't know. We had listened to a podcast where they were talking a lot about what they usually drink in a pub. And they mentioned cider a lot, and they were talking about how cider there is different from cider here. And they did have a cider on tap that was like an Irish cider. So I got that, and oh man, it is different. It was really good. And yeah, we just hung out in the pub basically until it closed. And the bartender there was super nice too. Everyone's nice everywhere we go. So yeah, we had a great time, went to bed very, very late. So our next day we were planning to go to Chicago. We were planning to drive down to Illinois. And we had a list of things we could do in Chicago, but we hadn't really planned how we were going to get there. We were planning to stop at one place that has a bus stop and then go from there. And then we're like, okay, well, we were looking up like what time were the buses leaving, or the train, it's a train. Like what time are the trains leaving? What time do we need to get there? All this stuff. We're doing this while drunk, so it's not really going super well. But we got like a base plan, and we knew what time we needed to be there. So we had that going for us. And then we went to bed. So now we're on Wednesday. Wednesday night, Tuesday night in the middle there. Jake had woken up because he was just really hot, so we cranked the AC up. And then I woke up because the AC, he turned it up all the way, and it was so loud. And so I woke up to the noise, and I like turned it down again, but I had trouble falling back asleep. So we both just had a terrible night of sleep. We were both a little bit hungover, but we tried to make the best of it. We got up. County Clare had breakfast. We went and had breakfast downstairs, but we were also sort of like, oh, we hadn't planned enough, and we were both kind of stressed. So we're just like, we just need to like finish eating and just get out of here. Our plan was to go to Arlington Heights. There's a train station there. And we were planning to go from Arlington Heights to Chicago and trying to get there like as early as we could. But it was getting a little late. We're like, we can make it and we can still do Chicago, even though the train ride will take a little bit and then we'll have to take the train back. And we were stressed about the whole thing. Finally, we do get there and there's no parking. Like none. They basically had one row that was regular parking and it was all full. Everything else was like 3-4 hour parking, like free parking, which generally is good, right? But we're like, we're going to be gone for more than 4 hours. Like what, if they check that and they see that we've been here for more than 4 hours, do we get a ticket? Like, cause there's nowhere to like pay for it, or at least not that we could find. Maybe we just don't know anything, but we couldn't find anywhere that wasn't like 2 hour free parking or 4 hour free parking. And we're just like, we just want to pay for parking so we can know that our car is fine so we can get on this train. But there was nowhere to go. So we ended up sitting in the parking lot just like, what do we do? The train that we were meant to go on had already left. There was another one for an hour. So we're like, do we just sit here for like an hour? Do we do something else? Like we definitely didn't want to drive into Chicago because we know Chicago is very busy. And like, I don't even like driving in like Minneapolis. So I'm just like, I don't want to drive in Chicago. And Jake's more cool with driving than I am. And we've both been to Chicago before. I went there on a plane, but I think he might have driven. I can't remember, but he said it was a bad time. So we just didn't want to. It's too big of a city for us. No offense to people who do live there. Too big for us. So we sat there and we're like, well, how about we just change it? How about we just don't go to Chicago and we can go a different time? I was like, we can do multiple days and we can not have to stress about getting there and then getting on the L and then going here and then going there and then having to like rush back so we can get to our hotel tonight because we'd already pre-booked a hotel. So we decided to skip it. We looked at what we had scheduled for the next day, and the next day we had New Glarus, Wisconsin. So we're like, okay, we're just going to, like, we'd gone super out of the way to get to this stop. We're in Illinois. Like, we'd gone from Wisconsin to Illinois. We're like, we're just going to go back up to Wisconsin. And the other kind of crappy thing is that our hotel for the night was in Freeport, Illinois. So we went back. I'm getting ahead of myself. We went back to Wisconsin, then we had to drive back to Freeport, Illinois to spend the night since we already had the hotel, and then like drive back through Wisconsin again. So we basically only drove through and slept in Illinois, and most of our trip was in Wisconsin. But I digress. So we go to New Glarus. I can't remember how long of a drive it was, but it was a bit of a drive. We stopped at, what was it? It was a Swiss museum. There was a nice volunteer there who sort of gave us a brief show around. I think it was just us and like one other couple were the only ones there at the time. And we looked through they had buildings there, so you could look through the buildings and see what things were like, what kind of stuff they had. Because New Glarus was founded by Swiss colonists from Glarus, and they founded New Glarus. And there are a bunch of people who like weren't really farmers, but they're trying to be like, but things weren't going well, so they're coming here to try and make things better, but they were learning to farm because they'd never done it before, and it was very interesting stuff. Neither of us have like Swiss heritage, as far as we know, but it was still really cool to see. From there, we went to the New Glarus Brewing Company because we like our breweries. New Glarus Brewing was insane. It's funny, we get there and we see a couple coming with they have like a whole like those kiddie wagons that you pull children around in, like the red wagons. They had one of those full of beer, just cases of beer. We see them go to their car and we're walking and we're like, oh God, can't believe they had so much. It's crazy. But New Glarus only sells their beer in Wisconsin. They don't sell it anywhere else. So I'm like, they must have been out of state. Like that must be the reason why. We walk up, but there are like ruins everywhere that you're walking around. They had the beer was like set up outside, like sort of outside. Like they had their inside place, but their bar was outside. So we could go up and be like, hey, I would like this. And so we each got a beer. And we didn't realize it. We thought it was just like $8, I think. I forget prices. It was like $8. We're like, okay, we get a beer for that, whatever. But we got to keep the glass. Like the glass was ours to keep from that $8 beer. We're like, oh, geez, okay. So now we have 2 New Glarus glasses. So we walked around all these little ruins, took pictures. We finished our beers, and then they had like a rinsing station, so you could rinse your beer glass out, so you could, pack it in your car without it getting all sticky and gross. And then we went inside. They had a little gift shop. We didn't get anything at the gift shop, but they had a self-guided tour. There's a little museum thing, so you could learn the history of New Glarus Brewing, which was really cool. But then you could do a self-guided tour of the brewery itself, and this was the most interesting brewery tour I've ever been on. Basically, this is also a working brewery, but everything is behind like glass, plexiglass, I don't know, but it's all open. Like you can see everything that's going on inside. Like you can see all the kettles, you can see all the workers, you can see the product control, you could so even if you can't go in the room yourself, you can just see everything that's going on. And it was just a huge place. There's so much being produced, and it was so neat. And it was nice it was self-guided too, because no one needs to be like, hey, no, you can't touch that. Most people don't because they're adults and they don't do that, but it's just kind of yeah, you can just wander around and do whatever, because what are you gonna, you're not gonna get inside. You can just look at all of it. Very neat. Again, highly recommend if you're ever in New Glarus, or just make a stop in New Glarus. It's a cute little town. And then also at New Glarus, they gave us little tokens, I think. I forget. They gave us something, and that meant we could get another beer of theirs at basically any restaurant in town that they partnered with. So after we were we didn't leave yet. So after we did our little mini tour, we went to buy beer. We found the beer I'd had was called Raspberry Tart, and it was delicious. So we got 2 4-packs of that. And then we saw there were a bunch of like seasonals that were just like 4-packs. And we're like, well, I'm curious. Like, they didn't have those on tap. We should try those. So, and then Jake's dad had asked if we could bring him back Spotted Cow. And then we're like, so we basically took a case of everything. So we were like, the people we made fun of when we got there, that was us when we left. Like, and someone else was coming in, like, and made fun of us. But it was like, this might be you in just an hour. You too can leave with a cart full of beer. A trunk full of beer. Oh man, it was ridiculous. But they were so good. They were great things. And then we went to Sugar River Pizza, where we got like another like New Glarus beer from them. I forget what it was called, but it was like an Asian style pizza. There's like pineapple and kung pao sauce. Like it was an interesting pizza. I wouldn't say it was the most flavorful pizza I've ever had, but it was pretty good. Like it was something different that we hadn't had before. And then, unfortunately, we had to go from New Glarus all the way back to Freeport, Illinois. Since we'd planned Chicago and New Glarus hadn't really had much stuff to do, and we hadn't done, I mean, we definitely did driving, but it wasn't as long of a train ride and like driving and whatever as we'd expected. So we just spent the rest of the night playing video games. It was a good night. Played a lot of Played Up. So we wake up on Thursday, and for the first time ever, we both slept through the night. It's the first time since like we'd stayed at the hotel for the wedding. It was the first time we got a good night's sleep. Besides like the one night, the Sunday night that we stayed at home before our Minimoon. Highly recommend taking a break between the wedding and your Minimoon to just like recharge at home. But we get up, we have a hotel breakfast. It's pretty good. We decided to go to, I had a few different state parks written down, but we decided to just do a couple. So we went to Devil's Lake State Park. So there's a trail that was around the lake, but we went to a trail that was like further up, like the northeast or the East Bluff Trails, I believe it was. So we could see the lake from where we were, and it was a longer trail. It was very cool though. You got to walk up a bunch of like, there's a lot of stone walking up, and like you're on a cliff. So there was a lot of that sort of scenery, and then you can see a long way down. We ended up getting to see Devil's Doorway, and Jake tried to take a panorama and it ended up not working, and I felt so bad because it's blurred literally right over the Devil's Doorway that he's trying to take a picture of. I'm like, oh, that sucks so much. He tried so hard. But we got to see some really good sights. We got another reason we like hiking is it gives us a chance to have some like good conversations. So like even at home, we'll just go on walks around the neighborhood if we just want to have like a chat. So not that we can't chat at home, but it brings stuff up more and it gets us off our phones. Well, it gets me off my phone. Yeah, we stopped at their little gift shop. We basically just got water, though. We were very thirsty. When we go on road trips, we generally just get, like, a bunch of Gatorades and Powerades just to, like, keep us hydrated. But at that point, we were so sick of the flavored waters that were, the flavored stuff. We're just like, let's just get plain water. I just need plain water. So you get that urge sometimes. And then we had to drive a little bit. There's a place called Parfrey's Glen that's kind of, like, on the very edge of Devil's Lake State Park. It feels kind of like a rainforest a little bit. For parts of it. I've never been to a rainforest, so I have no idea what I'm talking about. But it was really cool. You could see a bunch of bluffs. We're close to Wisconsin Dells, and so it has that sort of scenery if you've been there, where it's kind of like the bluffs on the side. There's a bunch of like green moss. It's very beautiful. We walked about as far as we could until it started getting like only rocks and being very muddy. But it was really lovely, and I was glad we got to stop there. That was one of the places I really wanted to see. And from there, I think we decided like, well, we're just gonna stop at Culver's. I don't remember if we even got custard. I think we just got like, regular like Butterburger sort of food. Because I think it originated in Wisconsin, if I remember right. We got cheese curds. They were great. We kept driving. We got to Eau Claire, and it was cold. It was so windy. And like our last stop in Eau Claire, we wanted to get to Olson's Ice Cream. And so like we park on this windy ass road. It's like we're freezing our butts off, but we go to this ice cream parlor and I get like some butterscotch flavored ice cream. And then we get in the car and I eat it in the car on the way home. It wasn't like the craziest Minimoon ever. We basically were relegated to Wisconsin, which is a place that even though we live nearby, we don't go too often. So it was nice to see sites that we hadn't seen before. We didn't get to see everything because we only had so much time, but it was a really fun trip. If you've never considered driving through Wisconsin, I would recommend it. Like even just like from Minnesota, and we drove over a bridge to get into Wisconsin, we're like, wow, like, I don't know, the trees just look different there. Something happened. It was just beautiful suddenly. And now we're just talking about, like, okay, where are we going to go next? Do we go to, like, I don't know. I wouldn't really be a day trip because it's a little while. I think it's La Crosse in Wisconsin. Or is that Minnesota? I know it's on the border somewhere. We're talking about, like, oh, we should go there. Like, oh, we should do this place. And we should go here. So, and we'll see. Because it's like, we want to do, like, day trips. But some of these trips would be far away. And it'd be a lot of driving. If it was a day trip, we'd have to do, like, a weekend trip. But the Minimoon itself was fun. And it's kind of, I think you get what you make of it, really. Like, I could just be like, oh, it was so lame. We just went to Wisconsin. We didn't even go anywhere, like, you know, a far-off destination. But, I don't know, the County Clare Inn and, like, the cool distillery we went to and, like, the really nice brewery in New Glarus. Like, those were all really neat places that we hadn't seen before and were really fun to see. And even if we had just, like, stayed local and just found, like, a few fun restaurants and done, like, a few hiking trails around here, that also would have been fun. I think what you do on a vacation is what you make of it, so. And we got to spend a lot of time together. And after that, we came home, spent the night at home, and then we went to a wedding. But I'll save that story for another video. So I hope you're having a good time, and I'll sign off for today. Bye!